Thanks for sharing, Jake. Next topic I want to touch on, and I'll start with Andrew again, is the devastating effect drug addiction has and the impact drug addiction has on families.
Okay, well, I talked about that a little bit earlier, and I think it just changes the whole nature of the family. When you live in secrecy and when you live with the feeling of shame and you're dealing with the stigma of addiction, you're alone, you're isolated, you have no one to talk to. If you have cancer in the family, you can talk to everybody, and people gather around you and they send fruit baskets, and they can't do enough to help you. Same with any other kind of a physical disease. But when it's alcoholism or when it's drug addiction, you're utterly alone and you're isolated, and you organize yourselves around maintaining that secret and about living silently with the devastation that it brings, with the worry about when is he or she going to die? When is the next shoe going to drop? When am I going to get called to the police station? When am I going to have to run to school? When am I going to have to stop locking everything up and hiding everything and worrying about what's going to be taken? When am I going to have to stop running to the pawn shop in order to see if I can recover that family heirloom that I've had for so long that's now gone? You know, this is what the life is like. And you're isolated. You don't have a neighbor or a family member until that point comes at which you can ask for help. And that's why I think it's so important to know that along with the treatment aspect, once you do hit bottom, whatever that bottom is, that it has to include the family. And certainly, you know, at North Shore Child and Family Guidance Center, we don't see any child without also working with the family. And when we deal with the issue of addiction, we don't only deal with young people who are using, we deal with young people who have parents who are using, children of alcoholics, children of drug addicts, because they need support. You know, an old colleague, friend of mine who was an alcoholic, that before he hit his final bottom, or so we seem to see, he went through about 14 different bouts of or tries at, you know, residential care, you know, when he hit that bottom. But when you're using, you're sedated, you're medicated, and so you're, you know, sort of getting medication, self-medication for whatever the anxieties that you may feel. When you're a family member, you're not doing that. So it takes even longer in many cases for a family to recover. And thank goodness they have programs like Al-Anon, Alateen, Naranon, you know, programs for family members who are able to benefit from the fellowship, eliminate the isolation, and get the support that they were lacking for sometimes years and years, even decades. So it is a devastating thing for a family to deal with addiction, and we must always think about the importance of reaching the family and engaging family members in the recovery process.
Absolutely. Stephen, I'm sure you've seen a lot of effects, devastating effects on how this disease affects families.
Yeah, it's like you said, you know, it's it doesn't just affect the person that's using. Although when you're using, you like to believe it's my life, it's my body. Why are you worrying? It has nothing to do with you, you know. But it's not like cancer where everybody's accepting. You know, it's not like that because there's such a stigma to it. Because someone with cancer isn't sneaking in your room in the middle of the night and robbing your wallet. You know what I mean? Like that's they're both chronic illnesses, but it's a totally separate disease and a totally separate results from it. And you know, to the point where my mom would shop at Stop and Shop at the town over, because God forbid she ran into somebody that said, "Hey, how's Steven doing? You know, my son's, you know, about to graduate law school. How's Steven?" You know, and oh, well, he failed out of 5 schools, and he's not doing anything with his life, and he's an active heroin addict. You know, like she would pretend to be on the phone when she got home, getting out of her car, in case the neighbor stopped to say, "Hey, how are you?" Because she would run into the house. She said she used to leave the door unlocked to save the 1 minute of getting her keys and unlocking the door. She'd rather have the chance of having the house robbed than having the chance of having the neighbor ask her how she's doing, you know. And these are the things I'm going on through. However, I didn't even know at the time, you know. The first time I even understood that maybe my actions are affecting people around me is when my mom surprise visited me, worst surprise ever. She surprise visited me when I was down in school, and as soon as she saw me, she just started hysterically crying because I was, you know, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, everything drained down. If you looked at me, you know I was an addict. You know, when she saw me, she just broke down, and I wasn't the person she dropped off at school anymore. And because I was to the point where I'd be walking the street, and a mom would be passing by with her kid, and she'd pull her kid to the other side of the street before they crossed my path. You know, because I was an unapproachable human being, and you know, not just my mom, you know, my little brother who looked up to me as you know, a role model, you know, who also battles with the disease of addiction, you know what I mean? My sister, who I grew estranged from during my using, who I'm very close with now, but you know, our relationship grew apart when I was using. Obviously, she's not like me. She doesn't want to associate, nor does anybody want to associate themselves with a negative influence. Why would you want to? I'm a tornado that rips through the lives of everybody around me. That's what I am. I destroy people. That's what I do. That's what I did. And, you know, it really wasn't to a point that I got sober. And listen, the family dynamic is everybody's leaning on each other for balance. Doesn't mean it's a normal family dynamic, but everybody's leaning on each other for balance. Now you take me out, and I get sober, and I come back, and I'm shift positions now. That balance is off. You know what I mean? So now we have to readjust and rework that family dynamic in order to make it whole again. And you know, I've been able to really start to make positive changes in my family as well. You know, I was able to be there for my brother when it was his turn to get sober, right? I was able to be there for my mom when she needed me to do something. I was able to be there for my sister when she got married and she needed someone to walk her down the aisle, right? I was able to be there and do all these things in a family that a few years prior was completely destroyed. That it looked like it was unrecoverable. Today we have a beautiful family that has beautiful relationships with beautiful people and do beautiful things because I'm sober and because our family has been restored to sanity. That's really what it comes down to. So yes, substance abuse has impact on family, but so does recovery, and that's important to understand too.
Absolutely. Bob, what are your thoughts on how drug addiction can devastate and have an effect on a family life?
It's quite amazing, the results. We've met many families where the parents are just so physically drained, the family's so physically drained that they look like addicts themselves sometimes. They're so drained, they don't know what to do, they're lost, they're beaten, they're weakened. Even the strongest of men, strongest of women, weakened at the knees because they just don't know what to do. They love their child so much, but they don't know what to do. So you see that element of it. You see the other side when, unfortunately, if they do hit rock bottom and somebody ODs and dies, the incredible guilt that those parents have to live with for the rest of their lives. What could I have done? What didn't I do right? How could I fix this? It's my fault, my son. I didn't help him. If he had cancer or if he had some other disease, I could have got him a doctor, I could have got him help, I didn't do anything, or I didn't do enough, or could I have done more? The torment that some of these parents go through is devastating. They'll never be the same. They'll never be the same. You have other parents that, like our friend in one of these, in the Kiwanis group, who still is emotionally stunned and emotionally drained, but he's turned all that anger and all that resentment and all that energy towards helping others. So you see life takes funny turns, and you see some complete devastation, some fall apart, some get strong and fight and unify with others, and they get together and they pull together and try to help others. But it's just so devastating that more parents than not, more families than not, are just so driven the wrong way from it. It's